Welcome to the Food on Demand podcast, where we dish up insights on the future of restaurants relating to off-premises operations and the overall digital dining experience, and explore how this dynamic industry is reshaping the way we eat. I'm Bernadette Heyer, Managing Editor.
And I'm Adam Wahlberg, Associate Editor. Food on Demand is your exclusive media source, here to help restaurant operators meet the digital guests where they are. Be sure to check out our Off-Premises University webinar series that's now live, and subscribe to our weekly newsletter.
Yes, please do. Now, before I get into our guest interview today with Andrew Garfrerick, he is the head of delivery strategy at Papa John's International. It's time for our quick bite segment where we share what's been sizzling in our kitchens lately. So, Adam, take it away.
Thank you, Bernadette. I recently attended a panel discussion at the Restaurant Finance and Development Conference, which is put on by our sister publication, the Restaurant Finance Monitor. 3 days of amazing panel discussions, and I really liked this one panel in particular. It was moderated by a guy named Andrew Charles at TD Cowen. He's an analyst, and a lot of what he spoke about was AI in restaurants, specifically voice AI in drive-thrus. Now, I've been a bit of a skeptic, perhaps others are, just because of the McDonald's experience where they had installed it and used it for a while, then quickly pulled it out because it wasn't working perfectly. And so I thought, well, gosh, maybe we're not ready for mass adoption in restaurants quite yet. And then I walk into this panel, and Andrew Charles is sitting there saying, oh, gosh, bet everything that you're going to see this radically change the industry in the near to somewhat near future. And he gave some really specific reasons why. One was suggestive selling. He gave a very specific example of check size. So much relies on suggestive selling. You got to do it. And yet it's human nature for employees to not love doing it because it's mostly rejection, and maybe you have somebody who gets a little weary of it and forgets to do it or doesn't want to do it all the time. Well, voice AI will do it all the time. You don't have to worry about voice AI. So it's his opinion that an operator can really see check size probably go up just because of the suggestive selling aspect of it. And then he mentioned a secondary benefit that you will have a group of happier employees because they don't have to do it. And I thought, well, that's a very simple, understandable reason for why this could really improve margins, just because suggestive selling could be more effectively done. And I thought, well, that's a very good point. So that was my takeaway from his session, but the broader takeaway is he's really sold. We know the technology exists. We know many brands are testing it. We know there are many vendors, tech providers, willing to get it set up for them. And so I think it's likely that it's going to head in that direction. So voice AI, I learned a lot, and I'm now a bit more of a believer.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, so many QSRs are testing it right now or have deployed it even. And as you mentioned, many tech vendors happily providing it or willing to do pilots with certain restaurants if they want to test it out. Yeah, and you mentioned labor. Some say this is so that employees can focus on more customer service facing, maybe in the restaurant or other areas, and have the AI take the orders. So yeah, it's certainly continuing to be adopted, and we will keep an eye on it. So thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Well, my quick bite is some big news in the third-party delivery landscape world. Wonder, the food hall and delivery startup founded by Mark Lohr, has acquired Grubhub for $650 million. Now, Grubhub was acquired by JustEatTakeaway.com, or Jet, for over $7 billion in 2021. And Grubhub has struggled to keep up with competitors DoorDash and Uber Eats, struggling for market share, and has seen a decline in that. And so Just Eat has been looking to offload Grubhub for some time. And the acquisition is clearly a stark contrast to the $7 billion Jet paid for the platform just a few years ago compared to the $650 million that Wonder did. But what's behind this deal? So, Wonder is growing rapidly, mainly on the East Coast. It's a delivery and takeout focused startup that operates food halls and sells high quality meals from US chefs and restaurants. Lore's goal with Wonder is to create a super app that he says will feature a selection of Grubhub's restaurant partners alongside Wonder's own food hall offerings and meal kits from Blue Apron, which Wonder bought in 2023. And so analysts say buying Grubhub not only provides Wonder with a new source of revenue, but also gives the company access to Grubhub's delivery drivers and delivery technology. But yeah, it's interesting to see what exactly will happen with Grubhub. It's unsure right now if anything will change in the future with services or restaurant listings. We'll keep an eye on the development of that. But as mentioned, Wonder is making waves in the industry, and we're exciting to see where Mark Lore will take it next.
Absolutely, he is one fascinating guy, and yeah, what the implications for Grubhub will be interesting to watch. I talked to somebody who said, "Oh no, this is all great news for Grubhub.
Right.
They're gonna get
Mhm.
bigger." And I guess I had originally, when you see an acquisition or whatever, you think, "Oh, is this kind of the end of Grubhub?" And but Mark Lore always interesting to watch, and he has big plans, and it'll be fascinating to see where this all goes.
Absolutely. And we'll keep you all updated. So thank you so much, Adam. Now it's time for our guest interview. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
All right, it is now time for our guest interview with Andrew Garfrerick. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, Andrew. So he's with Papa John's. And before I have you dive into your background and your current role, just wanted to touch base that Andrew and I met for the Food on Demand conference, the last one I hosted, and he was a part of my off-premises roundtable. So I thought we should bring it to the podcast so you listeners can hear all about Papa John's delivery strategy and more of his insights. So again, thank you for joining me, Andrew. But to kick it off, can you tell me more about yourself, some background, and what led you to your current role?
Certainly, Bernadette. Yeah, I've been at Papa John's for about 2 years now and responsible for commercial performance across a lot of our channels, but primarily delivery. So that's everything, our legacy first party channel, which has been around for decades, and then our third party delivery channel, which has been around for about 5 years or so. So obviously, it's a big piece of the company, and it's a lot of fun to do pizza delivery. Prior to that, I was at DoorDash for 5 years, so familiar with the space, and at DoorDash was building new verticals like convenience, retail, grocery, and so been in the delivery and last mile space for almost a decade at this point, and certainly a big area of innovation, which is fun to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And was there anything that made you particularly interested in the restaurant sector or this side of the world?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is it's fun being on the brand side. I mean, I hear this from people who work at media agencies and then move into a brand. It's just a lot of fun, and consumers really resonate it. My kids think it's the coolest thing that I work for a pizza company, and so that's a big piece of it. Is pizza is here to stay. It's never going to go away, and I just love being a little part of the future on how we get pizzas from A to B.
I love it. Well, let's dive into some of that strategy over at Papa John's. So, Papa John's really was one of the first pizza delivery companies, the big ones, to start using third-party delivery, like the DoorDashes of the world. Tell me about that history and its current model.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like you said, Papa John's was an early adopter of third-party delivery. It made a ton of sense for the business. You want to be where the customers are and where they want to shop. And if you're a fisherman, there's no sense in ignoring the pond where a lot of the fish are biting. And so for Papa John's, it was about finding a new channel for customer acquisition. And the early mover advantage is certainly playing out. If you look at some of the numbers, Papa John's commands outsized market share in the pizza category on third parties relative to the rest of the pizza category and other channels. We view that as an advantage. One, these are the fastest growing channels, so it's great to be overachieving in terms of our market share there. And then two, we're just driving a ton of customer frequency and affinity through these channels as well. So big part of our strategy. And one other thing is it allows our partners like DoorDash and Uber and Grubhub, they trust us to be in on it whenever we want to test anything new. So we're always an alpha partner or a beta partner, whether it's a platform-wide test or even very pizza-specific things. They've learned that they can trust us to help test, help optimize, and frankly, we've seen it in some of the numbers as well. Our conversion rate on these platforms tends to overperform some other large enterprise QSR brands. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, and that's really interesting to think about the first mover mentality, get you guys' foot in the door when it comes to the hybrid model that we see pizza delivery have today. So have you seen consumer behavior change? It seems like Gen Z is pretty married to their apps and so forth, but yet there's always great deals ordering first party. If you have the Papa John's
Right.
app, can you tell me what you've been seeing on that end?
Certainly. And a lot of it, Bernadette, is like changing behaviors from demand input channels. And then it's also changing behavior on the fulfillment of these orders and what the expectations are. On the demand side, you said it. It's a lot of the newer generation, they're very app oriented. And I think we all know who's winning the app wars right now. It's the third-party aggregators. And we're not going to begrudge them, right? DoorDash and Uber have built amazing apps. Customers love them. And the ability to aggregate some of the order frequency in one place where you can then build a pretty compelling subscription program, yeah, it makes a ton of sense for the consumer. And so that, we're seeing a growing preference among newer generations for third parties, especially when they use apps, unless they're deal seeking. So
Right.
if you don't know what's for dinner, you're probably opening up a third-party platform. If you know exactly what you want, you may be searching that restaurant specifically for the best deal. And so that's kind of what we're banking on with a lot of those customers. But yeah, it's tricky. Not only are newer generations looking at other ways to order, i.e. off-platform for us, some of the basket sizes may be smaller. There's an expectation that $5 is too much for a delivery fee. Guess what? Pizza delivery's been going on for decades. The math has to work. So $5 has always been at least a benchmark these days. Maybe it used to be 3 or 4. If you're over $1.99, $2.99 these days on a delivery fee, it's a little eye-popping. And so that's another changing consumer expectation we're dealing with there. And last thing I'll say on the fulfillment side is we've just seen a huge surge in contactless. It was a pandemic trend, safety-oriented, that stuck, and consumers enjoy, as long as they know exactly where that pizza is, they don't have to have it handed to them. And we're finding that Gen Z and some other and the newer customers coming to market actually prefer not talking to a human. Good or bad doesn't matter. It's they'd rather track it on their phone and pick it up on the mat afterward. And we need to be able to cater to that occasion.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that because as you mentioned during the pandemic, it was contactless everywhere, take a picture, left it at your door or whatnot. So it's interesting to hear that trend is still favored among younger generation, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Tailoring to all guests, main priority at Papa John's. So talking a bit about the kind of digital transformation and tech stack upgrades or what you've done over the course of the past years, is that something you can touch on for me as far as any technological advances or what you guys might be looking at?
Certainly. And I'll be relatively brief here just because we do have the fortune of we brought on Kevin Visconti, our new CTO, incredible leader in the industry. I mean, was at Domino's years ago, was most recently at Wendy's with our new CEO, Todd Pinagor. But we've got a lot of new ambition over what's going to happen in the next, let's call it 1 to 3 years with our technology. But to take a step back, I mean, pizza companies are in an interesting position at the moment with technology just because it was the first food category to e-commerce. I think literally 1999 might have been one of the first online pizza orders. I'll have to go fact check that later. So there's had to be an e-commerce tech stack since the early 2000s. And maybe not surprisingly, a lot of the tech innovation and the supporting systems that have been built over time for new digital channels and things like that all build on that foundation. And that foundation, give it credit, it has shown resilience over 25 years. So it shows you how strong that is. But at some point, Yeah, it needs a full renovation. I think that's where we are. We've got plans for modernization and a lot of new, nimble, flexible features that are going to be implemented over the course of the next year or two as we modernize that stack and make it more nimble for the modern consumer. Incredibly excited about that, especially the expertise Kevin is bringing to the table just from the industry. We are excited to be able to move a little bit faster, as fast as the consumer is. That's both to meet their needs as well as support our operators. We've got majority franchise system with our well over 3,000 restaurants in the US and then even globally as well. It's important that they're supported with technology that's pretty flexible.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to keep a close eye on everything happening with your guys' upgrades and so forth. If you can touch on this, do you see automation playing a role at all in Papa John's future? I know quite a bit of pizza delivery companies are at least testing some form of automation, whether that's delivery fulfillment, back of house, or in general.
Certainly. You think of automation, you think of robots in the kitchen.
Right.
That's kind of what everybody's brain goes to. And that's important too, I think, especially the QSR industry. Yeah, automation of very repeatable tasks in the kitchen are important, not just for labor savings, because we know what's been going on with labor, but consistency and quality of the product. On the other hand, and this is kind of where our brand sits too, is there's the craftsmanship of the product. And so when you're talking about pizza craftsmanship and the ability to spin dough, slap dough, roll out dough and put all the topping,
Yep.
there's something about having a human in that process. So we'll see what happens from a kitchen perspective. I think what you're going to see first back of house is more video. So we're talking about quality assurance, making sure that what is going out the door is what was ordered. And there's a lot of video to comb through on the make line that can go through that. So that's interesting where you've got some automation or even some AI solutions that can parse just massive amounts of video to pinpoint where things went wrong. The other thing, and you hit on this, Bernadette, is the decisioning. So where this is super valuable is taking some of the decision burden off of our operators and general managers in real time. And you mentioned we have a hybrid delivery system. We're majority employee delivery, traditional pizza has been that way for decades. But a growing percentage of our Papa John's delivery is being outsourced. We happen to have a relationship with DoorDash Drive for that. And today, in most cases, it is an operator decision on whether a delivery is going to happen with an in-house employee or outsource to our delivery partner. And that's a big mental load for somebody, especially in the heat of a Friday night rush, to really go through. And the decision's pretty simple. It's how can I get this pizza to the consumer fastest? I mean, that's going to be the highest quality experience. But it's hard to do the trigonometry in real time when you're looking at a map and where your drivers are and trying to figure that out. So the automation of all dispatch decisions is one key piece of it. And then on the back end, we call it guest recovery or refund recovery. We're already partnering with some AI solutions to help figure out where refunds might need to be requesting those from our delivery partners, and then even some of the investigation work when our customers request refunds or we need to make it right.
Sure.
There's a lot of that process that you can take a human out of that loop because it's highly tedious, we'll say.
Yeah, I really love that you mentioned there's a difference between wanting the craftsmanship to still be there and the importance of the human, but then talking about these things like reconciliation or the things that can be easily automated to save so much time is what lots of QSRs are at least testing right now. So I appreciate you diving into that. Some of that, what you mentioned, is in relation to AI, I'm assuming, or what's your take on that?
Yes, AI is incredibly exciting and incredibly scary.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where some of the knowledge work that we do, it actually makes a ton of sense because our main objective as a franchisor is to make sure our operators feel supported. And our ability to take mental load and decisioning off of their plate is incredibly important. One of the biggest things, I forgot to mention this even, is the concept of ordering channels. We talked about apps. Apps are now the hot new way to order. It's great. You get exactly what you want. You don't have to go through a phone tree, maybe talk to a human who may misunderstand you. The order comes in exactly like it should, and people feel comfortable with apps. But what's the next generation? I don't think it's apps. So apps are having their moment. They will have their moment, but it's the curve. And so what comes after apps? And we're going to come full circle to what I like to call interactive ordering. The old way of interactive ordering is either you pick up the phone and call, or if you're in the store, you're placing the order with an associate right there at the point of sale system. Interactive ordering, that's where you could take a human out of the loop. So we've already seen some voice AI solutions being deployed in the industry in drive-throughs. Um, we're talking about voice AI over the phone for order place. We're even talking about chatbots. There could be chatbots within the app or in your mobile web experience or something like that, where you can place an order. Or even taking this a step further, are all of us going to be living with AI virtual assistants 5 years from now, right? Maybe that's where Alexa, Google Nest, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Hey, Alexa, can you reorder my last pizza order? Right. And that automatically knows to go into Papa John's voice AI. So, I mean, who knows what that's going to look like? But I think that's it, is we're seeing the app wave now. And and we already said, it's a lot of the third party providers are well positioned in the app space. Once we move back to interactive ordering, it's like, oh, geez, we're getting our telephones back out here. But once we go back to voice, which is more of a natural language processing, and if I just want to order a pizza, I want to say a couple sentences and then have to get out my app and sit here and type for 5 minutes. Is that going to cause a resurgence in first party ordering channels? Because we have the ability to put kind of like a natural language AI solution back out front if somebody knows exactly what they want to order for dinner. So that is super exciting to us, is demand in the door, interactive ordering in a post-app world, and then guest recovery on the back end. We're talking about AI, chatbots, support, customer needs something made right. How can we make it right to them without them having to go through a phone tree?
Sure. Yeah, I think that was a great way to describe everything you just did and what you're maybe looking forward to see implemented. That's what I see too, is people mentioning chatbots would be really helpful, possibly in the back of house, to simply ask a question if something goes down in the back, and they can ask the chatbot what to do, or if a customer can, reorder the order from last time by asking. These are things I think we'll see continue to adapt as the restaurant industry just continue to change and become more digital forward. So, okay, well, let's move on from the tech segment here. So what's been, would you say, the biggest challenge in evolving Papa John's delivery strategy, and any input on that?
Yes. And you mentioned it earlier, Bernadette. It's running a hybrid fulfillment model is probably the hardest choice a brand can make. And granted, we did it very intentionally, because it's in the moment, how can we best fulfill a customer's order and make it as high quality as possible? And the flexibility of a hybrid model is paramount to that. Now, running a hybrid model is super hard, because we have all these employees and the labor to manage on that piece. And then we have an outsourced delivery partner, in this case, DoorDash Drive. So I mentioned the decisioning and a lot of that today. Some of it's manual. We're moving toward an automated decisioning in the future. But it's when you add complexity into the process, managing it's tough, especially when you have a franchise system where we promote a lot of freedom of choice. And so this is somewhere where, we do not have a brand standard necessarily on fulfillment. There's freedom of choice with franchisees on how they do that with employees versus outsourcing. And so managing a lot of those moving pieces has certainly been a challenge. But hey, our customers remain happy that we're getting them these pizzas as fast as possible and delivering on really what's now an industry standard, which is a 30-minute promise. I would say the other thing on the demand side that's tough is, again, these rapid changes in channel shift. Like all these demand channels, not only are new ones emerging, and yeah, the first it was apps, then it was third-party aggregators. Now we've got all these, like I said, interactive and natural language type channels emerging. The pace is so quick. And by the time you take a couple years to think through it and build a solution, something else that is emerging quicker. And the pace of change has got a lot of brands, including ourselves, rethinking how should we be tackling this. And it gets back to what we talked about, the tech strategy and reimagining the stack. Is we're going to optimize for the ability to be nimble and move quickly, rather than creating just a monolithic type solution. So that's what's important to us. At the end of the day, where we sit within the pizza category, it's been interesting to watch over the last 5 years as, let's just say, delivery has become democratized. The ability to deliver is no longer a differentiator. The
Mhm.
ability to deliver consistently in 30 minutes is no longer a differentiator. Any brand and their mother can get you their food in 30 minutes because there's all these great partners out there who can make that happen for you. So, what is your differentiator now? Well, it's actually now really back to the food quality and the value. And part of that
Sure.
gets back to the craftsmanship we were talking about, back of house, every operator and franchisee delivering that quality food to the customer. And then it's making sure the value proposition is compelling. And so when you're a brand like Papa John's, who has been known for so long for better ingredients, and quality. And we've seen it the past couple quarters. It's been a challenge for us in a value environment, but that doesn't mean we can't compete on value either. And so we're excited to see over the next couple quarters some of these value offerings come to life across both ends of the barbell. Having value that's available, but maintaining our spot with premium innovation. I think that'll be fun to watch.
Well, I really appreciate you just diving into that last part there. It answered my next question, which was going to be, where do you see the industry, pizza delivery industry going in the next 3 to 5 years? And I think you really hit that on the nail there. So before I move on to getting to know you a bit more at the end here with some few fun random questions, anything else I haven't mentioned in general about Papa John's delivery, what you're excited for, or that we haven't touched on in this conversation?
Bernadette, you've hit on a lot of the hot topics, which I do appreciate. But in terms of the future of the industry and what gets us excited, there's going to be change. Because, like I said, the rest of QSR has caught up to pizza in the ability to get you fun food that you want within about 30 minutes from home. So
Mhm.
the differentiators are going to be interesting. Part of it, like I said, it's value and quality. We touched on that. But the other thing is, what else is out there to innovate on? I don't think we've hit the limit on speed. Everybody expects 30 minutes now is what's gonna be the 10-minute or 15-minute pizza option. And so this may not be getting a driver in a Toyota Camry to get from point A to point B from the store to your house. There may be innovations beyond this. We didn't necessarily talk about drones or
Right.
some of the autonomous today, but that's emerging. I
Yes.
think much like, I think that's a lot like solar energy. It's one day you just know it's going to be a huge portion of what's going on, but there's a lot to catch up on in terms of the order level economics. And so certain things have to get a little bit cheaper for that to really proliferate. And then regulations too. It's also weird thing about a bunch of drones buzzing around in the low
Yeah.
airspace above your head, but that can get a pizza from A to B pretty quick. It doesn't have to abide by traffic laws. The
Mhm.
other thing is the concept of just the ice cream truck model. It's apply that to pizza, right?
Mhm.
Is can you have a mobile pizza kitchen that's, hey, I'm in your neighborhood, blast out a signal through the app or something that says, hey, it's a truckload of super cheap pizzas, but they're going to ride by your house
Mhm.
here in a minute. That's interesting. And I only thought of that because when Wonder, Mark
Yep.
Lohr's company, recently bought Grubhub,
Yes.
they've done a lot of things in the food space. That's going to be a fun one to watch too. Is they were doing the food truck model in the beginning, and I was sitting here wondering, I was like, hey, could that be an interesting pizza truck type
Yeah.
idea? I'm curious if they're going to start innovating in that space, because if you take the ability to make a pizza and you decouple that from the restaurant, that is what can get you the sub 30 minute, sub 20 minute. Because I mean, Domino's has the ability to get you something in closer to 20 minutes at times because of the density of their stores, which is going to be closer to you. Could a truck get it there in 10 or 15? That'll be interesting to see. So keep an eye on speed, in addition to just craftsmanship, quality, and value.
I love it. I love it. That was a great way to wrap it up. And yes, I'm definitely watching what's going on with Wonder and Mark Lohr's purchase of Grubhub closely. And we also did follow that story when he started out with the food trucks, driving to place during that time. Yeah. And then I think about drones, it's super interesting. I think the last person I interviewed about that, Robin Riedel from McKinsey, and he said that now it's really about finding the best operating models for
Yeah.
restaurants. And that's obviously goes in line with affordability and scale now that the technology has caught up to be able to deliver food from
Mhm.
restaurants in a few minutes. So we'll see how this continues to adapt, Andrew. I'm looking forward to it.
Indeed. Me too.
All right. So before I let you go here, I'd like to move into our segment called Did You Leave Room for Dessert? Where I'd like to ask my guests a few fun random questions to get to know them better outside of their roles in their regular job. So,
Great.
Andrew, can you tell me a bit about any hobbies or what you like to do for fun outside of work?
Certainly. Well, I like to tell people I used to have hobbies till I had two young children. So now, but no, now my hobby is keeping them entertained. And I would
I'm
tell you,
sure.
these girls love sporting events. So we are very much into the Atlanta scene.
Hmm.
Georgia Tech football, Georgia Tech volleyball, go Jackets, Atlanta Braves, Atlanta United. We are at some sporting event at least every other weekend. And my 3 and 6 year old girls just love it. So that frankly takes up a lot of our weekends and we wouldn't trade it.
Absolutely. That definitely would. Well, I'm glad to hear it. What is your go-to comfort food or your favorite meal?
Well, of course, I have to say it's Papa John's
Pizza,
pizza,
right?
but I will tell you the our epic stuffed crust. It is exquisite, and I wouldn't trade it. So I love getting our garlic epic stuffed crust pizza. I've actually gone lower on meats recently. Doctor told me to watch that cholesterol. So sometimes I've been going with veggies and particularly mushroom. I just
Mhm.
love a mushroom pizza. My 6 year old daughter loves mushrooms for whatever reason, and so we love that epic stuffed crust.
Love it. Making me hungry. It's about lunchtime here in
Yeah.
Minnesota during this recording.
That's
So,
it.
final one, Andrew, favorite place to travel that you would like to mention?
Yeah, well, it's an easy one because we go there a lot. It's Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. We just happen to have a family connection there, which hey makes it cheap when you go. So it's great with young kids,
Yeah.
and they just love it. I mean, the girls they learn to ride their bikes down there, visit the beach, visit the pool, do some putt-putt. Multiple times a year. Doesn't matter the season. We just love getting away, seeing some water and some sand.
Sounds great. Well, I hope you all get to go soon. And that was all the time I have today, Andrew. So thank you so much again for being a guest and your continued relationship with Food on Demand. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me.